Question: can you help me to understand days on market? What if the price was changed to be more competitive, or the property was taken off the market and put back on at a competitive price? Answer: it is first very important to note that under USPAP, days on market and exposure time are two entirely different concepts. Exposure time is hypothetical, retrospective, and applies only to the subject property. Days on market or marketing time for sales and listings is factual and reflects the total amount of time that the specific property, subject or comparable, was known by the market to be available for purchase. With that out of the way, the answers to these questions depend on the client and the intended use of the assignment results. For example, in a relocation assignment, marketing time, or days on market, is addressed in two ways: actual and competitive. Actual is the total amount of time the property was listed at all prices. Competitive is the amount of time that the property was on the market once it was listed at a competitive price. Since the appraiser is projecting the value into the future, generally no more than 120 days from the date of inspection, competitive days on market is more relevant to the analysis than is actual days on market. For residential mortgage lending purposes, days on market is probably best defined in Appendix D of Fannie Mae's UAD protocol as the total number of continuous days from the date that a property is listed and advertised for sale through the date it is taken off the market or contracted for sale. So for Fannie Mae purposes, if the property was on the market for 360 continuous days before it went under contract, then that should be the number of days reported, even if it was overpriced for most of the time. Since this may be misleading, especially if you identify days on market on page 1 as being 3 to 6 months, it is probably a good idea to provide an explanation somewhere in the report. Something like, Comp 2 has a total reported days on market of 360 days. However, it was initially listed for $399,900. The price was then reduced to $319,900, and within 45 days of the reduction, it went under contract for $308,000. In addition, Fannie Mae has specific requirements for how days on market is to be reported in order to be compliant with the UAD. The days on market must be expressed numerically, without any slashes, dashes, or any other notations designed to distinguish total days on market from the number of days on market when the property was competitively priced. If the property was taken off the market and then put back on, Fannie Mae would only want the most recent days on market period to be reported. Note the word continuous in their definition. However, it might also be appropriate to provide a comment about the previous marketing period and the length of time the property was off the market. In any case, it's extremely important that the client and the intended users are not misled by the information provided.